She grabbed the glass of red wine and hurled it directly at his chest. Not an accident, not a stumble. Victoria Whitmore looked that black man straight in the eyes and threw her drink all over his $3,000 suit. "That's what you get for sitting in first class," she hissed. But Victoria Whitmore had just made the worst mistake of her entire life, because the man she had just assaulted wasn't just any passenger. He was Darius Cole, the most powerful corporate lawyer in America, and in 6 hours he would own everything she had. Her house, her cars, her husband's company, everything. Before you hear what happened next, I want to invite you to subscribe to my channel and follow this story until the very end. Drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now, let me take you back to the beginning. Victoria Whitmore shoved past a family struggling with their luggage without a single word. "Move," she snapped. The father stumbled. His daughter dropped her teddy bear. Victoria didn't look back. She never looked back for anyone. Maya, the young flight attendant at the first-class entrance, smiled warmly. "Good afternoon, ma'am. Welcome aboard. May I see your boarding pass?" Victoria shoved the paper at her face. 1F, mimosa, now. The lounge champagne was garbage. "Of course, Miss..." Victoria was already gone. Maya exhaled. 8 months on this job. She still wasn't used to passengers like this one. Victoria scanned first class. 8 seats, half empty. Her eyes locked onto seat 1A, the premium window spot. Empty. Perfect. She'd put her Birkin bag there later, keep it off the dirty floor. She dropped into 1F and jabbed the call button immediately. Maya appeared in 20 seconds. "Yes, Mrs. Whitmore? My mimosa. Where is it?" "I'm bringing it right now, ma'am." "We're just finishing board." "I don't care. Get it." Maya hurried away. Victoria pulled out her phone and scrolled through Instagram, her lips pressed into a permanent frown. 300 likes on her latest post. Pathetic. Her friend Margaret had gotten 600 on a picture of her salad. Then she felt it, a shift in the air. Someone moving down the aisle with a presence that demanded attention. She looked up. A black man had entered first class. Tall, 6'4" at least. Shoulders broad enough to fill a doorway. Charcoal suit that fit like a second skin. Hair cut in a precise fade. Jaw sharp as a blade. He carried a leather briefcase in one hand, a black cashmere coat draped over his arm. He walked like he owned the aircraft. Victoria's entire body went stiff. He stopped at row 1, checked his boarding pass, reached up to open the overhead bin above seat 1A. "Excuse me," Victoria's voice cracked through the cabin like a gunshot. "Excuse me." The man paused, turned his head slowly, looked at her with calm, neutral eyes. "Yes? I think you're lost." Victoria forced a condescending smile. "The crew quarters are in the back, or if you're looking for economy, you've walked way too far, honey. This is first class." The poison in her words spread through the air. The elderly gentleman in 2F lowered his newspaper. The young couple in row 3 stopped mid-conversation. Maya froze in the galley doorway, champagne glass in hand. The man's expression didn't flicker. Not anger, not embarrassment. If anything, a ghost of a smile crossed his lips, like a lion watching a mouse challenge him to a fight. "I'm aware of where I am, madam," he said. His voice was deep, smooth, precise. "I'm in seat 1A." "Seat 1A?" Victoria laughed loudly. She looked around for support. "Did everyone hear that? He thinks he belongs in 1A." No one laughed with her. "Let me guess," she continued, her voice dripping acid. "The airline upgraded you because they overbooked economy? It's ridiculous how they let just anyone up here these days. Completely ruins the experience for the rest of us." The man didn't respond. He simply placed his briefcase in the overhead bin, hung his coat on the hook, settled into seat 1A, pulled out a tablet, started reading. He had dismissed her. Completely, totally dismissed her. Victoria's face burned red. Her fingers dug into the leather armrests. Nobody ignored Victoria Whitmore. Nobody. Her husband was Gregory Whitmore, CEO of Whitmore Shipping and Freight. She chaired 3 charity boards. She'd been in Coastal Living magazine just last month. And this man, this nobody, had turned his back on her like she was invisible. Maya approached carefully with the mimosa. "Here you are, Mrs. Whitmore." Victoria snatched it without looking. "Maya." "Yes, ma'am." "Check his ticket." Maya blinked. "Excuse me? Are you deaf? Check his ticket." Victoria jerked her chin toward 1A. "I don't feel safe with certain types of people sitting so close to me. There's obviously been a mistake." Maya's face lost all color. She glanced at the man who was calmly scrolling through what appeared to be a legal document on his tablet. "Mrs. Whitmore," Maya said carefully, "Mr. Cole is a Diamond Elite member with our airline, one of our most valued passengers. He's definitely in the correct seat." "Mr. Cole," Victoria snorted. "What kind of name is that? Sounds completely made up. He's probably a rapper or one of those basketball players. That's the only way someone like him could afford first class." The cabin went completely silent. Even the air seemed to stop circulating. The man in 1A slowly lowered his tablet. He turned his head and looked directly at Victoria. His eyes were dark, intelligent, and utterly unreadable. "My name," he said quietly, "is Darius Cole, and I would strongly advise you, Mrs. Whitmore, to enjoy your drink and your flight. It's a long journey to Los Angeles. It would be a shame to spend it making an enemy of the wrong person." His tone was measured, polite even, but underneath the words ran a current of power that made Victoria's stomach clench involuntarily. She should have stopped. Any rational person would have recognized the warning, but Victoria Whitmore had never been rational when it came to her pride. "Is that a threat?" she demanded loudly. "Maya, did you hear that? This thug just threatened me." "I heard no threat, ma'am," Maya said softly. "Of course you didn't," Victoria's lip curled. "You people always stick together, don't you?" Maya flinched like she'd been punched. Her eyes glistened. She turned away quickly, but not before Victoria saw the hurt. The elderly gentleman in 2F shook his head in disgust. Darius Cole watched this exchange. Something shifted in his expression. The polite neutrality vanished. What replaced it was cold, calculating. "Mrs. Whitmore," his voice now carried through the entire first-class cabin with the authority of a judge pronouncing sentence. "I am a paying passenger on this aircraft. I purchased the most expensive seat available on this flight. My name appears on Continental's Diamond Elite membership roll, which means I have spent over $200,000 with this airline in the past 12 months. He paused. Let the number hang in the air. "I am also the founding partner of Cole, Harrison & Associates, one of the most successful corporate litigation firms in the United States. I am flying to Los Angeles today for a meeting that will determine the future of approximately 4,000 jobs and several $100 million in assets." Victoria's smirk wavered. "I don't know what assumptions you've made about me based on the color of my skin," Darius continued, his voice dropping to something almost intimate in its intensity. "But I promise you this. Every single one of them is catastrophically wrong. Now, I'm going to return to my work. I suggest you drink your champagne and reconsider your behavior, while you still can." He picked up his tablet and resumed reading. The dismissal was absolute. Victoria sat paralyzed. Her mimosa trembled in her hand. Never in her 52 years of life had anyone spoken to her like that. Not her father, not her husband, not anyone. The elderly gentleman in 2F cleared his throat. "Ma'am, I've been practicing law for 40 years. I know that man's name. If I were you, I'd apologize immediately and pray he forgets your face." Victoria whipped toward him. "I didn't ask for your opinion, old man." He shrugged. "Your funeral." He returned to his newspaper. Victoria turned back toward 1A. Darius Cole had put on reading glasses and was making notes on his tablet with a stylus. His brow was furrowed in concentration. He had already forgotten she existed. The indifference was worse than any insult. She drained her mimosa in 3 furious swallows and smashed the call button. Maya appeared. Victoria thrust the empty glass at her. "Another, and I want to speak to the captain, now." "The captain is preparing for departure, ma'am. He's not—" I don't care what he's doing. Get him. Mrs. Whitmore, I really can't. Do you know who my husband is? Victoria's voice rose to a shriek. Gregory Whitmore, CEO of Whitmore Shipping and Freight. We spend more money on continental flights in 1 month than you make in a year. So when I say get the captain, you get the damn captain. Maya's hands were shaking. I'll see what I can do, ma'am. Let me bring your drink first. She fled to the galley. The young woman in row 3 leaned toward her boyfriend and whispered, Should we record this? He was already holding up his phone. Victoria didn't notice. Her entire focus was locked on the man in 1A, who continued working as if she didn't exist. Her phone buzzed. Gregory. Gregory. Landing in LA around 6. Dinner at Mastro's? Victoria typed back. Can't talk. Some man is harassing me on the plane. Gregory. What? Are you okay? Victoria. I'm handling it. Just some nobody who doesn't know his place.
Jesus, Vicky, don't make a scene. We have the Cole meeting next week. Everything depends on it.
Victoria frowned at the screen. What Cole meeting?
I've told you 100 times. Darius Cole, the lawyer. His firm is deciding whether to fund our acquisition. If he says no, we're finished.
Victoria stared at the message. Then she stared at the man in seat 1A. No, it couldn't be. Cole was a common name. There had to be thousands of lawyers named Cole. She typed, What does he look like? Gregory. I don't know. I've never met him in person. Only his partners. Why? Victoria's fingers hovered over the keyboard. She looked at Darius Cole again. He was still working, still completely absorbed in his documents. It was a coincidence. It had to be a coincidence. She typed, No reason. See you tonight. She put her phone away. The aircraft engines roared to life. The flight attendants began the safety demonstration. The plane started taxiing toward the runway. Maya appeared with the second mimosa. Victoria grabbed it without a word. The plane accelerated, lifted off, climbed through the clouds. Victoria couldn't stop staring at 1A. 1 hour passed. Darius Cole hadn't glanced in her direction once. He had switched from his tablet to a laptop, typing rapidly, occasionally pausing to review documents, occasionally taking calls on his phone. Victoria ordered a third drink. Red wine this time. A large glass of Cabernet. The older flight attendant, Barbara, brought it with barely concealed contempt in her eyes. Victoria didn't notice. She was too busy trying to hear Darius's phone conversations. The Whitmore file, yes. Victoria's blood turned to ice. Financials are worse than we projected. Her heart started pounding. The CEO has been misleading the board. Her hands began trembling. I'll have my final recommendation by landing. She couldn't breathe. Darius hung up the phone and returned to typing. Victoria sat frozen. Her wine glass clutched so tightly, her knuckles were white. He had said Whitmore. She had heard it clearly. The Whitmore file. This man wasn't just some random passenger. He was the man who held her husband's future in his hands. And she had just called him a thug. For a moment, just a moment, something like fear flickered through Victoria's chest. A small voice whispered that she should apologize. Right now. Immediately. Before it was too late. But then her pride roared back to life. So what if he was some fancy lawyer? She was Victoria Whitmore. Her husband was a CEO. They had money, connections, power. This man might think he was important, but he would learn. He would learn that you don't disrespect Victoria Whitmore without consequences. She stood up abruptly, grabbing her wine glass. I need to use the restroom, she announced, to no one. She walked toward the lavatory at the front of the cabin. This path took her directly past seat 1A. She paused beside Darius, looking down at his laptop screen. Legal documents, financial statements, and right there in bold letters at the top of the page, Whitmore Shipping and Freight, Acquisition Analysis. Victoria's stomach dropped. Can I help you, Mrs. Whitmore? Darius asked, without looking up. No, I was just... The lavatory is behind you. She stumbled away. Inside the tiny bathroom, Victoria locked the door and gripped the sink with both hands. Her reflection stared back. wild eyes, smeared lipstick, the first crack in her perfect facade. He was reviewing documents about Gregory's company. Right now, on this plane. She pulled out her phone. No signal at this altitude. Think, Victoria, think. She splashed water on her face, fixed her lipstick, took 3 deep breaths. Maybe it didn't matter. Maybe he was going to approve the deal anyway. Maybe her comments earlier hadn't registered. Lawyers dealt with difficult people all the time, right? He probably encountered worse than her every day. Yes, that was it. She was overreacting. She opened the bathroom door and walked directly into Darius Cole. His presence was overwhelming. The breadth of his shoulders, the quiet power radiating from him, the unwavering steadiness of his gaze. "Oh," Victoria gasped. "Watch where you're going." Darius looked down at her with something approaching amusement. "Mrs. Whitmore, I wasn't going anywhere. I was standing..." Darius tilted his head slightly. "Mrs. Whitmore, for the past 2 hours, I have been sitting in my seat doing my work. I have not looked at you. I have not spoken to you. I have done absolutely nothing to you. And yet here you are accusing me of intimidation." He leaned closer. His voice dropped to a whisper. "If I wanted to intimidate you, Mrs. Whitmore, you would know it. Trust me." Victoria's mouth opened, closed. No sound came out. "Now," Darius said, straightening up, "I suggest you return to your seat and stop drinking. You're impaired and you're embarrassing yourself." He stepped around her and walked back to 1A. Victoria stood frozen in the aisle. Her entire body was trembling, with rage, with humiliation, with something she refused to acknowledge as fear. Everyone was watching her. The elderly man, the young couple, the flight attendants in the galley, all of them looking at her like she was the problem. Her, Victoria Whitmore. Something inside her snapped. She stalked back to her seat, grabbed her wine glass, still half full, stood up. "Victoria," the elderly man in 2F spoke sharply, "whatever you're thinking, don't do it." She ignored him. She crossed the aisle to seat 1A. Darius looked up from his laptop. His expression was calm, almost bored. "Mrs. Whitmore, I thought we agreed you would..." She threw the wine in his face. The dark crimson liquid exploded across his chest. It soaked into his white silk shirt, splattered across the lapel of his charcoal suit, splashed directly onto the keyboard of his laptop. The laptop sparked. The screen flickered. Smoke rose from the keys. The cabin erupted in gasps. Darius sat motionless. Wine dripped from his chin. His laptop made a dying sound and went black. For 5 seconds, no one breathed. Then Victoria laughed. It was a sharp, triumphant cackle. "That's what you get," she crowed. "That's what you get for sitting in first class. That's what you get for disrespecting me. That's what you get for thinking you're somebody when you're nothing but a..." "Mrs. Whitmore?" Darius's voice cut through her tirade like a surgical blade. He hadn't moved, hadn't wiped the wine from his face. He just sat there, looking at her with eyes that had gone absolutely dead. "What?" she sneered. "You have just made the biggest mistake of your life." Victoria laughed again. "Is that supposed to scare me? You're going to sue me? Go ahead. My husband's lawyers will destroy you." "Your husband's lawyers." Darius finally moved. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a silk handkerchief, and slowly, methodically, wiped the wine from his face. "Let me tell you something about your husband's lawyers." He stood up. At his full height, looming over her, he was terrifying. "Your husband no longer has lawyers, Mrs. Whitmore. His entire legal team resigned 3 weeks ago. Do you know why?" Victoria's sneer faltered. "What are you talking about?" "They resigned because they knew what was coming. They knew that Whitmore Shipping is drowning in debt. They knew the banks are calling in their loans. They knew your husband has been desperately searching for someone, anyone, to bail him out. You're lying." "I never lie, Mrs. Whitmore. I'm a lawyer. I deal exclusively in facts." Darius took a step toward her. Fact: Whitmore Shipping owes $52 million to Pacific Coast Credit Union. Fact: Your husband has missed his last 3 loan payments. Fact: The bank was preparing to seize every asset your family owns until a potential buyer emerged. Victoria's face had gone white. How do you know all this? Darius smiled. It was the coldest smile she had ever seen. Because I'm the buyer. The words hit Victoria like a physical blow. I'm Darius Cole, founding partner of Cole, Harrison & Associates. My firm has been in negotiations with your husband for 6 months. We were going to save his company. We were going to save 4,000 jobs. We were going to save your lifestyle. He leaned in close, so close she could smell the wine on his ruined shirt. No! Victoria stumbled backward. No, that's not. Gregory would have told me. Gregory didn't tell you because he was ashamed. Gregory didn't tell you because he knew you would make it about yourself. Gregory didn't tell you because he stopped trusting you years ago. Stop talking. I'm just getting started. Darius pulled out his phone. You just assaulted me on camera. You just destroyed $8,000 worth of equipment. You just used racial slurs in front of 15 witnesses. And you just gave me everything I need to bury you. Victoria lunged for the phone. Give me that. Maya appeared from nowhere, grabbing Victoria's arm. Mrs. Whitmore, stop! Get off me, Victoria screamed, thrashing. Get your hands off me. Do you know who I am? The cockpit door flew open. Captain Rodriguez stepped out, his face thunderous. What the hell is going on here? Maya was struggling to hold Victoria back. Captain, this passenger assaulted Mr. Cole. She threw wine on him and destroyed his laptop. The captain surveyed the scene. The soaked suit, the destroyed laptop. Victoria, still writhing in Maya's grip like a wild animal. His expression hardened. Ma'am, he said icily, you will sit down immediately. Do you understand me? I will not. You will sit down, or I will have you restrained with zip ties for the remainder of this flight. Those are your only options. Choose now. Victoria stopped struggling. She looked around the cabin. Every single person was staring at her. The elderly man, the young couple with their phones out recording, the flight attendants in the galley, other passengers who had emerged from business class to see the commotion. Every face showed the same emotion: disgust. Victoria let Maya lead her back to her seat. The captain turned to Darius. Mr. Cole, I am deeply sorry for this incident. We will be filing a full report with the airline and with the authorities. I can promise you this woman will face serious consequences. Darius nodded, still dabbing at his ruined shirt. Thank you, Captain. I'll need immediate Wi-Fi access. I have some urgent communications to send. Of course, anything you need. The captain returned to the cockpit. Maya hurried to Darius's side with towels. Mr. Cole, I'm so sorry. Can I get you anything? We have spare uniform shirts. That won't be necessary, Maya. Darius reached into his briefcase and pulled out a tablet. I always travel with backup devices. He sat back down in his wine-soaked seat and began typing. Victoria watched from across the aisle, her heart slamming against her ribs. What was he doing? Who was he contacting? She grabbed her phone desperately. Still no signal. But wait, if he could use Wi-Fi, maybe she could too. She jabbed the call button. Barbara appeared, her face stone cold. Yes? I need Wi-Fi access. Now. I'll see what I can do. 5 minutes later, Victoria was connected. She had 27 new messages, all from Gregory. Victoria, where are you? Answer me. Why aren't you picking up? Victoria! What the hell did you do? Cole's firm just called. They're pulling out of the deal. Do you understand what that means? They're pulling out. Our accounts are being frozen. Frozen! I'm calling the lawyers. Don't say anything. Don't do anything. Victoria, I swear to God, what did you do? The bank just called. They're accelerating the loan. We're finished. Do you understand? Finished. I'm getting on a plane. Do not speak to anyone. Victoria. Victoria! Answer me. Victoria's hands were shaking so violently she could barely hold the phone. She looked across the aisle. Darius Cole was typing calmly on his tablet. His expression was serene, almost peaceful. He caught her staring, and he smiled. Not a warm smile, not a friendly smile. The smile of a man who had just won a war. Victoria's phone buzzed again. One more message from Gregory. Gregory, I just found out who you attacked. Darius Cole. The Darius Cole. The man who could have saved us. Victoria, I am divorcing you the moment I land. I hope you're happy. You've destroyed everything. Victoria dropped the phone. It clattered to the floor. She looked at Darius Cole. He raised his champagne glass, the complimentary one Maya had just brought him, in a silent toast. Then he turned back to his tablet and continued working. And Victoria Whitmore, for the first time in her entire privileged life, understood what it felt like to lose everything. The plane was 4 hours from Los Angeles. She had never felt so far from home. The plane shuddered through a pocket of turbulence, but Victoria barely noticed. She was staring at her phone screen, reading Gregory's message over and over again. I am divorcing you the moment I land. Her husband of 22 years, the man she had built her entire identity around, divorcing her over a text message. She looked up at Darius Cole. He was typing calmly on his tablet, a fresh glass of sparkling water beside him. Maya had brought him a warm towel for his face. She had offered him a blanket. She had apologized 6 times in the past 10 minutes. Nobody had offered Victoria anything. This isn't over, Victoria muttered under her breath. The elderly gentleman in 2F heard her. He lowered his newspaper and shook his head slowly. Ma'am, if I were you, I would sit very quietly for the rest of this flight and pray that man doesn't add more charges to whatever he's already filing. Mind your own business. I'm a retired federal judge. This is my business. He folded his newspaper. I've seen men like him in my courtroom. They don't threaten. They don't bluff. They simply destroy. And they do it legally, methodically, and completely. Victoria's jaw tightened. You don't know anything about me. I know enough. I know you just assaulted a man because of the color of his skin. I know you destroyed his property. I know you used language that would make a Klansman proud. And I know that every single person in this cabin heard it, saw it, and several of them recorded it. He pointed toward the young couple in row 3. They were huddled together, watching something on a phone. Their own recording, probably. That video is going to be on the internet before we land, the judge continued. Your face, your name, your words, everything. And there's nothing you can do to stop it. Victoria felt her stomach drop. She hadn't thought about that. She hadn't thought about any of it. She turned toward the young couple. Delete that, right now. The young woman looked up, startled. Excuse me? I said delete it. Whatever you recorded, delete it now, or I'll sue you for invasion of privacy. The young man laughed. Lady, you're on an airplane. There's no expectation of privacy here. And even if there was, you just committed assault in front of 15 witnesses. That's news. That's public interest. I'll have you arrested when we land. For what? Journalism? Victoria stood up abruptly. Maya appeared instantly, blocking her path. Mrs. Whitmore, please sit down. Get out of my way. Ma'am, I cannot allow you to approach other passengers. Captain's orders. If you don't sit down immediately, I will have to restrain you. Victoria looked at Maya's face, really looked at it for the first time. The young woman was terrified, but she wasn't backing down. There was steel in her eyes that Victoria hadn't noticed before. You'll regret this, Victoria hissed. All of you. You'll all regret this. She sat back down heavily. Across the aisle, Darius Cole hadn't even looked up from his tablet. He was still typing, still working, still completely indifferent to her existence. That indifference was driving Victoria insane. She grabbed her phone again. Maybe she could call Gregory. Maybe she could explain. Maybe there was still time to fix this. She dialed his number. It rang once, twice, 3 times. The number you are calling is not available. Please try again later. He had blocked her. Her own husband had blocked her phone number. Victoria felt something crack inside her chest. Not her heart. She wasn't sure she had one of those anymore. Something deeper, something foundational. the absolute certainty that she was untouchable, that she was protected, that she was special. That certainty was crumbling. She tried again. Same message. She tried his office number. His assistant answered. Whitmore Shipping and Freight, how may I direct your call? Jennifer, it's Victoria. Put me through to Gregory immediately. Silence on the line. Jennifer? Mrs. Whitmore? Jennifer's voice was strange, hesitant. Mr. Whitmore left instructions that he's not available for your calls. What are you talking about? I'm his wife. I'm sorry, ma'am. Those are my instructions. Jennifer, I swear to God, if you don't put me through right now... I'm sorry, Mrs. Whitmore. I have to go. The line went dead. Victoria stared at her phone in disbelief. Jennifer had worked for Gregory for 15 years. She had always been loyal. She had always been obedient. And she had just hung up on Victoria like she was a telemarketer. What was happening? She opened her email. Maybe Gregory had sent something. An explanation, an apology, something. There was one new message from Gregory's personal account. She opened it with trembling fingers. Victoria, do not contact me again. Do not contact the office. Do not contact our lawyers. I have been advised by counsel to cease all communication with you, pending the outcome of multiple legal proceedings. You have destroyed everything we built. I hope the satisfaction of humiliating a stranger was worth losing your entire life. Do not respond to this email. Gregory. Victoria read it 3 times. Multiple legal proceedings. Advised by counsel. Do not contact me again. She looked across the aisle at Darius Cole. He was watching her now. For the first time since the incident, he had stopped working and was looking directly at her. His expression was unreadable, but there was something in his eyes. Not triumph, not satisfaction. Patience. The patience of a man who had set a trap and was watching it close. Mr. Cole, Victoria said. Her voice came out as a croak. Mr. Cole, please, can we talk? Darius raised an eyebrow. You want to talk? Now? Please, I need to understand what's happening. What's happening is very simple, Mrs. Whitmore. You assaulted me. You destroyed my property. You defamed me with racial slurs in front of multiple witnesses. These are crimes. Crimes have consequences. But the deal, Gregory's company, the deal is dead. I killed it approximately 45 minutes ago with a single email to my partners. Victoria felt the blood drain from her face. You can't do that. We need that money. The company will collapse. Yes, it will. Thousands of people will lose their jobs. 4,217 to be exact. I know the number because I spent 6 months trying to save them. Darius's voice hardened. 6 months of due diligence, 6 months of negotiations, 6 months of convincing my partners that Whitmore Shipping was worth saving despite its financial problems. And in 6 minutes, you destroyed all of it. I didn't know who you were. Would it have mattered? Victoria opened her mouth to say, yes, of course it would have mattered, but the words died in her throat, because they both knew the truth. It wouldn't have mattered. She would have been polite to his face if she'd known he was important. She would have smiled and made small talk and pretended to be charming. But the moment he was out of sight, the moment she thought no one important was watching, she would have said the same things, thought the same thoughts. The only difference was that she got caught. I didn't think so, Darius said quietly. He turned back to his tablet. Wait! Victoria's voice was desperate now. Wait, please, there has to be something I can do, some way to fix this. I'll apologize publicly. I'll pay for your suit, your laptop, whatever you want. I'll make a donation to whatever charity you support. Just please, please don't destroy my family. Darius stopped typing. He looked at her again, and this time there was something like pity in his eyes. Mrs. Whitmore, let me explain something to you. I grew up in Harlem. My mother cleaned houses for women like you. My father worked 2 jobs just to keep food on our table. I put myself through college and law school on scholarships and loans. I built my firm from nothing, and every step of the way I encountered people like you, people who looked at me and saw a threat, a criminal, a diversity hire, someone who didn't belong. He leaned forward slightly. Do you know what I learned from those people? I learned that the best revenge isn't anger. It isn't violence. It's success. It's becoming so powerful that the people who tried to tear you down have to watch you rise above them. Victoria swallowed hard. I don't need your apology, Mrs. Whitmore. I don't need your money. I don't need your charity donations. What I need is for people like you to understand that actions have consequences, that you can't treat human beings like garbage just because you think no one important is watching. He gestured around the cabin. Everyone is always watching, and today, the whole world is going to watch you fall. Victoria felt tears prickling at her eyes. Please, I'm begging you. I know you are, and I want you to remember this moment. I want you to remember what it feels like to beg. Because my mother begged too. She begged your kind for extra hours. She begged for fair wages. She begged to be treated with basic dignity. And do you know what she got? Nothing. She got nothing. Darius turned back to his tablet. Enjoy the rest of your flight, Mrs. Whitmore. Victoria sat there, frozen, as the full weight of what she had done pressed down on her chest. She couldn't breathe. She couldn't think. She could only sit there, trapped in a metal tube 35,000 feet above the earth, watching her entire life disintegrate in real time. 2 hours passed. The captain's voice came over the intercom. Ladies and gentlemen, we are beginning our initial descent into Los Angeles. Please return to your seats and fasten your seatbelts. Victoria hadn't moved from her seat in over an hour. She had stopped crying somewhere over Kansas. She had stopped feeling somewhere over Arizona. Now she was just empty, a hollow shell in a Valentino suit. Her phone buzzed, a news alert. Breaking, Whitmore shipping stock plummets 40% in after-hours trading amid rumors of failed acquisition. She stared at the headline. 40% in one afternoon. Millions of dollars evaporated. Another buzz, another alert. Viral video, woman throws wine on black lawyer in first class, uses racial slurs. Victoria's blood went cold. She opened the link with shaking hands. There it was, the video, shot from the young couple's phone in row 3, crystal clear audio, crystal clear video. Her face, her voice, her words. That's what you get for sitting in first class. The video already had 2 million views. The comments section was a wall of fury. This woman needs to lose everything. Find out who she is and destroy her life. Racism caught on camera. No excuse, no forgiveness. Her husband owns Whitmore Shipping. Let's make sure they go bankrupt. Victoria scrolled through the comments, each one more vicious than the last. Her name was everywhere now. Her face was everywhere. Someone had already found her Instagram account and posted her address in the comments. Her address, where she lived, where her things were. She looked across the aisle at Darius Cole. He was reading something on his tablet. The video, probably, or maybe the news articles, or maybe the stock reports. He glanced up and caught her staring. Quite the viral moment you're having, Mrs. Whitmore, he said calmly. Last I checked, you were trending #1 on Twitter. Congratulations. Victoria couldn't speak. I should mention, Darius continued, that I've been in contact with several civil rights organizations during the flight. The NAACP, the National Urban League, the Equal Justice Initiative. They're all very interested in your case. I believe the phrase, making an example, was used more than once. Victoria's hands were shaking so badly, she dropped her phone. It clattered to the floor and slid under the seat in front of her. I've also been in contact with the airline's legal department, Darius added. They're preparing a lifetime ban from all continental flights. And they're considering pressing charges for interference with a flight crew, which is a federal offense. Federal, Victoria whispered. Federal, as in FBI, as in federal prison. Darius smiled thinly. But I'm sure a woman of your stature will do just fine in the federal correctional system. They have some lovely facilities in West Virginia. The plane shuddered as it descended through the cloud layer. Victoria looked out the window at the sprawling grid of Los Angeles below. The city looked so beautiful from up here, so peaceful. She had loved Los Angeles once, the shopping, the restaurants, the charity galas, the feeling of being somebody important in a city full of important people. Now she would be returning as a pariah, a villain, a cautionary tale. "Mr. Cole," she said, and her voice sounded strange even to her own ears. "What happens when we land?" Darius set his tablet aside. He looked at her with those dark, intelligent eyes. "When we land, Mrs. Whitmore, you will be escorted off this aircraft by federal air marshals. You will be detained for questioning regarding the assault and the interference with the flight crew. Your passport will be flagged. Your accounts will be frozen pending the outcome of multiple civil suits I intend to file. And your face will be on every news channel in America by dinner time." Victoria felt the walls closing in. "Your husband has already filed for emergency separation of assets, which means everything in your name, the cars, the jewelry, the vacation home in Aspen, is now subject to seizure. The bank that holds your mortgage has been contacted and informed of the situation. I expect they'll begin foreclosure proceedings within the week." "Foreclosure?" Victoria's voice cracked. "But we've never missed a payment." "You haven't, but your husband has been using the house as collateral for business loans that are now in default because the acquisition fell through. The house was never really yours, Mrs. Whitmore. None of it was ever really yours." The plane banked sharply, lining up with the runway. Victoria gripped the armrests, her knuckles white. "One more thing," Thaddeus said. "I received a text from my office about 20 minutes ago. Your husband made some interesting phone calls during the flight. Calls to his accountant, calls to his banker, calls to a divorce attorney." He paused. "He's planning to claim that you acted alone, that your racism was personal, not reflective of company values. He's going to throw you to the wolves to try to save himself." Victoria felt the last piece of her world crumble. "He wouldn't," she whispered. "He wouldn't do that to me. We've been married for 22 years. 22 years, and he blocked your phone number within an hour of finding out what you did." Darius shook his head. "That should tell you everything you need to know about your marriage, Mrs. Whitmore." The landing gear deployed with a heavy thunk. The ground rushed up to meet them. "I suggest you use these final few minutes to prepare yourself," Darius said. "What's waiting for you at that gate is going to be the beginning of the worst chapter of your life. And Mrs. Whitmore," she looked at him, "I want you to remember every single day for the rest of your life that all of this could have been avoided. All you had to do was treat another human being with basic dignity. That's it. That's all you had to do." The wheels slammed onto the runway. The engines roared in reverse. Victoria closed her eyes. She thought about her mother, who had taught her that some people were simply better than others. She thought about her father, who had told her that money meant never having to say you're sorry. She thought about all the times she had looked down on people, waiters, maids, drivers, anyone she considered beneath her, and felt nothing but contempt. She had spent her whole life believing she was special, that rules didn't apply to her, that consequences were for other people. Now she understood the truth. The plane taxied toward the gate. Victoria opened her eyes and looked out the window. There were police cars on the tarmac, flashing lights, men in uniforms waiting at the end of the jetway. Not a welcoming committee, an arrest team. "Mrs. Whitmore," Maya's voice was cold, professional. "Please remain in your seat until the other passengers have deplaned. Federal officers will escort you off the aircraft." Victoria nodded. She couldn't speak. She couldn't move. The seatbelt sign dinged off. Around her, passengers stood up, grabbing their bags from the overhead bins, chatting about dinner plans and hotel reservations, and the loved ones waiting to greet them. Normal people living normal lives. Victoria sat frozen in her seat, watching them file past. A few of them glanced at her with curiosity. Most of them looked away quickly, not wanting to make eye contact with the woman who had gone viral for all the wrong reasons. The young couple from row 3 paused beside her seat. "Just so you know," the young woman said quietly, "the video is at 5 million views now. and climbing. They walked away. Victoria watched them go. 5 million people had watched her throw wine on Darius Cole. 5 million people had heard her call him a thug. 5 million people knew her name, her face, her ugliest moment. And in a few hours, it would be 50 million. The cabin emptied. Maya stood at the front, watching Victoria with an expression that mixed contempt with something almost like satisfaction. Darius Cole stood up. He gathered his briefcase, his coat, his ruined laptop. He paused beside Victoria's row. "One last thing, Mrs. Whitmore." She looked up at him. Her eyes were red. Her mascara was ruined. She looked like a woman who had aged 10 years in 6 hours. "I want you to know that this isn't personal," Darius said. "I don't hate you. I don't wish you harm. What I wish is that you had made different choices. What I wish is that you had seen me as a person instead of a problem." He straightened his ruined tie. "But you didn't, and now you have to live with that. Goodbye, Mrs. Whitmore. I suspect we'll be seeing each other again. In court." He walked off the plane without looking back. Victoria sat alone in the empty first-class cabin. The police officers were coming down the jetway now. She could hear their footsteps, their radios, their handcuffs jingling. She thought about running, but where would she go? She was on an airplane. There was nowhere to run. She thought about hiding, but there was nowhere to hide. Not anymore. Not ever again. She thought about screaming, but what good would that do? No one would help her. No one would save her. She was alone. Completely, utterly, terribly alone. The officers appeared at the cabin door. 2 men in dark uniforms with badges and guns and faces like stone. "Victoria Whitmore," one of them asked. She nodded. "Ma'am, please stand up and place your hands behind your back. You are being detained for questioning in connection with an assault that occurred during this flight. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." Victoria stood up on shaking legs. The sound was final, absolute. "Ma'am, please walk with us." Victoria walked. Down the aisle of the empty first-class cabin, past the galley where Maya stood watching with grim satisfaction. And somewhere in the terminal, waiting for his connecting flight, Darius Cole sat in a quiet lounge, sipping a glass of whiskey, watching the news coverage on the television above the bar. Breaking: woman arrested at LAX after viral first-class assault. He raised his glass to the screen. "To consequences," he said quietly, and he drank. 3 hours after landing, Victoria Whitmore sat in a windowless interrogation room at LAX's federal detention facility. Her Valentino suit was wrinkled. Her hair had fallen from its perfect helmet. Her mascara had dried in black streaks down her cheeks. She had never been in a police station before, never been questioned, never been treated like a criminal. Now she was all of those things. The door opened. A woman in a dark blue suit walked in carrying a manila folder. She was in her 40s with sharp eyes and no smile. "Mrs. Whitmore, I'm Special Agent Patricia Morrison, FBI." FBI. The word hit Victoria like a punch to the stomach. FBI, she whispered. "Why is the FBI involved?" Agent Morrison sat down across from her. "Assault on an aircraft is a federal crime, Mrs. Whitmore. Interfering with a flight crew is a federal crime. Both carry sentences of up to 20 years. 20 years? That's the maximum. Realistically, you're looking at 5 to 10. Unless you cooperate." Victoria felt the room spinning. 5 to 10 years. In prison. Federal prison. "I want a lawyer," she said. "That's your right. We've contacted your husband's attorneys. They declined to represent you." "What?" "They said they have a conflict of interest. Apparently, Mr. Whitmore is their priority client, and representing you would compromise their ability to serve him." Victoria's mouth fell open. Gregory's lawyers, the lawyers she had treated like servants for 22 years. They had abandoned her. "I'll find my own lawyer then." "Of course. But I should tell you that your accounts have been frozen pending civil litigation. Mr. Cole's firm filed emergency motions about 2 hours ago. Very efficient, that firm. So unless you have cash hidden somewhere, paying for private counsel might be difficult. Victoria thought about her purse, her wallet, the $300 in cash she had been carrying for emergencies. $300 wouldn't buy her 5 minutes with a decent lawyer. "I'll get a public defender," she said, her voice shaking. "That's certainly an option." Agent Morrison opened her folder. "But before you make that decision, I want to show you something." She pulled out a photograph and slid it across the table. Victoria looked down. It was a screenshot from the video. Her face twisted with rage, her arm extended, wine flying through the air toward Darius Cole. "This image has been viewed over 20 million times in the past 3 hours," Agent Morrison said. "It's on every news network. It's trending on every social media platform. Your name is the #1 search term on Google right now." Victoria pushed the photo away. "I know. I've seen it." "Have you seen this?" Agent Morrison pulled out another photograph. This one showed a crowd of people gathered outside a building. They were holding signs. Victoria squinted at the image. The sign said things like, "Justice for Darius," and "Racist Go Home," and "Whitmore Shipping Supports Hate." "That's the headquarters of Whitmore Shipping in Long Beach," Agent Morrison said. About 500 protesters showed up within an hour of the video going viral. They're calling for a complete boycott of the company. Victoria stared at the photo. 500 people protesting her, protesting Gregory's company. "There's more," Agent Morrison continued. She pulled out a stack of papers. "These are printouts from social media. Death threats, Mrs. Whitmore. Hundreds of them. People want to hurt you. Some people want to kill you." "Kill me?" "Welcome to the internet age. You became the most hated woman in America in about 3 hours. That comes with consequences." Victoria felt her chest tightening. She couldn't breathe. The walls were closing in. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen," she gasped. I was having a bad day. I've been drinking." "Mrs. Whitmore," Agent Morrison's voice was cold. "I've watched the video 17 times. You knew exactly what you were doing. You targeted that man because he was black. You humiliated him because you thought you could get away with it. This wasn't a mistake. This was who you are." "That's not true." "Then explain it to me. Explain why you told a successful lawyer that he belonged in the crew quarters. Explain why you called him a thug. Explain why you threw wine in his face and laughed about it." Victoria had no explanation. Nothing that would make sense. Nothing that would help. "I want my phone call," she said finally. "I get a phone call." Agent Morrison slid a phone across the table. "1 call. Make it count." Victoria picked up the phone. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely dial. She called her mother. It rang 4 times. Then a voice she had known her entire life answered. "Hello?" "Mom, it's Victoria. I'm in trouble. I'm in so much trouble." Silence on the line. "Mom? Did you hear me?" "I heard you." Her mother's voice was strange, distant. "I've been watching the news, Victoria." "Mom, I need help. I need you to call someone, a lawyer, anyone. Gregory abandoned me. His lawyers won't help. I don't know what to do." More silence. "Mom?" "Victoria, I raised you better than this." The words hit Victoria like a slap. "What?" "I watched that video. I saw what you did. I heard what you said." Her mother's voice cracked. "I didn't raise you to treat people like that. I don't know where you learned that kind of hatred, but it wasn't from me. Mom, please. I can't help you, Victoria. I won't help you. You did this to yourself. You need to face the consequences. You're my mother, and you're a stranger. The daughter I raised would never have done what you did. I don't know who you've become, but she's not someone I want to know." The line went dead. Victoria sat frozen, the phone pressed against her ear, listening to nothing. Her mother, her own mother, had abandoned her. She put the phone down slowly. Agent Morrison was watching her with an expression that might have been pity. "That didn't sound like it went well," the agent said. Victoria couldn't respond. She couldn't think. She couldn't process what was happening. In the span of 6 hours, she had lost her husband, her lawyers, her money, her reputation, and her mother. She had nothing left. Mrs. Whitmore, Agent Morrison leaned forward, I'm going to give you some advice, not as an FBI agent, but as a human being. When you get out of here, and you will get out eventually, you need to disappear. Change your name, move somewhere nobody knows you. Start over. Start over? Victoria laughed bitterly. I'm 52 years old. I have no skills. I've never worked a day in my life. How am I supposed to start over? I don't know. But I know that if you stay in Los Angeles, if you try to maintain your old life, you will be destroyed. The internet never forgets. The people who hate you will never stop hating you. Your only chance is to become someone else entirely. Victoria stared at the table. Become someone else? The idea was absurd. She had spent 52 years becoming Victoria Whitmore. She didn't know how to be anyone else. The door opened. A young officer poked his head in. Agent Morrison, Mr. Cole is here. He's asking to speak with the suspect. Victoria's head snapped up. What? Agent Morrison raised an eyebrow. Interesting. Send him in. 2 minutes later, Darius Cole walked into the interrogation room. He had changed clothes. Fresh suit, fresh shirt, no trace of the wine that Victoria had thrown on him hours earlier. He looked immaculate, powerful, in control. Everything Victoria was not. Mr. Cole, Agent Morrison said, this is unusual. I know. I won't take much of your time. Darius looked at Victoria. I wanted to see her, face to face, before this goes any further. Agent Morrison stood up. I'll give you 5 minutes. She left the room. The door clicked shut. Victoria and Darius were alone. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Victoria couldn't look at him. She stared at the table, at her hands, at anything except those dark, intelligent eyes. Why did you come here? She finally asked. Darius sat down across from her. I came here to offer you a choice. Victoria looked up. A choice? I could destroy you, Mrs. Whitmore. Completely. Utterly. I could file lawsuits that would bankrupt you. I could push for criminal charges that would put you in prison for a decade. I could make sure that every time someone Googles your name for the rest of your life, they see that video. Victoria felt tears streaming down her face. Then why don't you? Because destruction isn't justice. It's just revenge. And I've spent my whole life trying to be better than the people who hurt me. Victoria wiped her eyes. What do you want from me? Darius leaned back in his chair. I want you to understand what you did, not just to me, but to every person you've ever treated the way you treated me. The waiters you belittled, the maids you ignored, the drivers you looked down on. All of them. I understand. No, you don't. Not yet, but you will. Darius pulled a document from his briefcase. This is a settlement agreement. If you sign it, I will drop all civil suits against you. I will ask the FBI to recommend minimal charges. You'll probably get probation, community service, maybe a fine. Victoria stared at the document. What's the catch? The catch is this. You will spend the next 2 years working at a nonprofit organization that serves homeless veterans. Minimum wage, manual labor. You will clean toilets. You will serve food. You will look people in the eye who have nothing, and you will treat them with dignity. Victoria's jaw dropped. You want me to work? Like a servant? I want you to learn what it feels like to be invisible. I want you to understand what it's like to be dismissed, ignored, treated like you don't matter. I want you to experience everything you've inflicted on others. And if I refuse, then I destroy you, completely. No mercy, no second chances. Darius's voice hardened. And I promise you, Mrs. Whitmore, I am very, very good at destroying people. It's literally my job. Victoria looked at the document. 2 years. Manual labor. Minimum wage. It was unthinkable. It was humiliating. It was everything she had spent her life avoiding. But the alternative was prison. Bankruptcy. Total annihilation. Why are you doing this? She whispered. Why give me a chance at all? Darius was quiet for a moment. Because my mother taught me that people can change. She believed in redemption. She believed that even the worst person could become better if given the opportunity. He stood up. "I don't know if you can change, Mrs. Whitmore. Honestly, I doubt it. But I'm giving you the chance because my mother would have wanted me to. Consider it a gift from a woman who cleaned houses for people like you and never got the respect she deserved." He walked toward the door. "You have 24 hours to decide. After that, the offer disappears and I go to war." He opened the door. "Mr. Cole," he paused. "Your mother," Victoria said quietly. "What was her name?" Darius turned back. Something flickered in his eyes. Pain, love, memory. Her name was Dorothy Cole. She died 3 years ago, breast cancer. She worked until the day she couldn't get out of bed anymore. He looked at Victoria one last time. "She would have cleaned your house, Mrs. Whitmore. She would have scrubbed your toilets and washed your dishes, and you never would have learned her name. Think about that while you're making your decision." He walked out. The door closed behind him. Victoria sat alone in the interrogation room, staring at the settlement agreement. 2 years of her life. 2 years of humiliation. 2 years of being nobody. Or total destruction. She picked up the pen. Her hand hovered over the signature line. She thought about her mother, who had abandoned her. She thought about Gregory, who had betrayed her. She thought about all the people who had watched that video and decided she was a monster. Maybe she was a monster. Maybe that's all she had ever been. But monsters could change, couldn't they? She signed her name. 4 hours later, Victoria Whitmore walked out of the federal detention facility. No cameras, no reporters. Agent Morrison had arranged for a back exit. She had nowhere to go. No money, no phone, nothing except the clothes on her back and a settlement agreement in her hand. She stood on the sidewalk, watching the cars go by, feeling more alone than she had ever felt in her life. A taxi pulled up. The driver rolled down his window. "Need a ride, ma'am?" Victoria looked at him. He was Middle Eastern, young, tired eyes. A month ago, she would have walked past him without a word. "Yes," she said quietly, "I need a ride, but I don't have any money." The driver studied her face. "You're her, aren't you? The woman from the video." Victoria flinched. "Yes." The driver was quiet for a long moment. Victoria waited for the anger, the disgust, the rejection. Instead, he unlocked the doors. "Get in." Victoria blinked. "What?" "Get in. I'll take you wherever you need to go. No charge." "Why would you do that?" The driver shrugged. "Because you look like you're having the worst day of your life, and because my religion teaches me to show mercy to those who are suffering, even when they don't deserve it." Victoria felt tears welling up again. She got in the taxi. "Where to?" the driver asked. Victoria thought about it. She had no home, no family, no friends, nowhere to go. Then she remembered the settlement agreement, the nonprofit organization, the homeless veterans. "Do you know a place called Veterans Hope Center?" she asked. "It's somewhere in downtown LA. The driver nodded. "I know it. Good people there. They help a lot of folks." "Take me there." The taxi pulled away from the curb. Victoria watched the city lights blur past. Los Angeles, the city of angels, the city of dreams, the city where her old life had ended, and maybe, just maybe, where her new life would begin. She didn't know what the future held. She didn't know if she could change. She didn't know if 2 years of scrubbing toilets would make her a better person or just a more bitter one. But for the first time in her life, Victoria Whitmore had been given something she never expected, a second chance, and she was terrified of wasting it. The taxi drove on into the night. 6 months later, Victoria Whitmore stood in the kitchen of Veterans Hope Center at 5:30 in the morning, her hands raw from scrubbing industrial pots. She barely recognized herself anymore. Her designer clothes were gone, replaced by a plain gray t-shirt and jeans from Goodwill. Her manicured nails were chipped and broken. Her highlighted hair had grown out, revealing gray roots she had hidden for decades. She looked like a different person. She was becoming a different person. "Victoria, the breakfast line opens in 30 minutes. You finished with those pots?" The voice belonged to Marcus Jefferson, the center's kitchen manager. He was a 62-year-old Marine veteran who had lost his left leg in Vietnam. He walked with a prosthetic and a permanent scowl. He had hated Victoria from the moment she arrived. "Almost done," Victoria said, scrubbing faster. 5 more minutes. "Make it 3. We got 200 hungry people waiting." Marcus walked away without another word. Victoria had learned not to take it personally. Marcus hated everyone at first. He had told her once that trust was earned, not given, and that in his experience, people like her never earned anything. She was determined to prove him wrong. The first month had been hell. Pure, unrelenting hell. Victoria had never worked a physical job in her life. She didn't know how to mop floors. She didn't know how to scrub toilets. She didn't know how to stand on her feet for 12 hours straight. She had cried every night for the first 2 weeks. Alone in the tiny room the center had given her, a converted storage closet with a cot and a lamp, she had sobbed into her pillow and wondered if death would be easier than this humiliation. But she hadn't quit. Something had changed inside her that day in the interrogation room. Something had broken, and something new had started growing in its place. She didn't have a name for it yet, but it felt like the beginning of a conscience. Victoria finished the last pot and dried her hands on her apron. She walked out to the serving line just as the doors opened. The veterans filed in slowly. Some walked with canes, some rolled in wheelchairs. Some shuffled with the vacant stare of men who had seen too much and remembered it every night in their dreams. Victoria had learned their names over the past 6 months, all of them. There was Robert, a 70-year-old Korean War vet who had lost his family to a house fire and never recovered. There was James, a Desert Storm veteran with PTSD so severe he couldn't hold a job. There was Maria, one of the few women, an army nurse who had served 3 tours in Afghanistan and come home to find her husband had left her for someone else. Each of them had a story. Each of them had suffered. And each of them had been invisible to people like Victoria for their entire lives. "Morning, Victoria." She looked up. An elderly black man was standing at the front of the line, holding out his tray. His name was William. He was 84 years old. He had served in Vietnam as a medic and saved 37 lives before a grenade took his hearing in his left ear. William had been the first person at the center to speak to Victoria without anger. "Morning, William." Victoria scooped scrambled eggs onto his tray. "How are you feeling today?" "Old," William said with a chuckle, "but that's nothing new. How about you, young lady?" Young lady. Victoria almost smiled. Nobody had called her young in years. "I'm okay," she said. "Tired, but okay." William studied her face. "You look different than when you first got here." "Different how?" "Softer, less like you're about to bite someone's head off." He winked. "It's an improvement." Victoria felt something warm bloom in her chest. It might have been pride. She wasn't sure. She hadn't felt pride in so long she had forgotten what it was like. "Thank you, William." "Don't thank me. Thank yourself. You're the one doing the work." He moved down the line. Victoria kept serving. Eggs, toast, bacon, coffee. The same breakfast she had served every morning for 6 months. The same faces. The same gratitude. Gratitude. That was the thing that surprised her most. These people who had nothing, who had been abandoned by the society they had served, who had every reason to be bitter and angry, they said thank you. Every single one of them. Thank you for the food. Thank you for the coffee. Thank you for being here. Victoria had never been thanked for anything in her old life. She had been served, not the other way around. And she had never, not once, thought to say thank you to the people who served her. She thought about all the waiters she had snapped at, all the maids she had ignored, all the drivers she had treated like furniture. She thought about Maya, the flight attendant she had humiliated. She thought about Darius Cole. The breakfast line ended at 8 o'clock. Victoria helped clean up, then retreated to the small office she had been assigned for her afternoon shift, answering phones and doing intake paperwork for new arrivals. It was mindless work, but she didn't mind. It gave her time to think. Her phone buzzed. She still had the cheap prepaid phone she had bought with her first paycheck. $50 a month. No internet, no apps, just calls and texts. It was enough. She looked at the screen. Unknown number. She answered. "Hello? Mrs. Whitmore, this is Agent Morrison." Victoria's stomach tightened. She hadn't heard from the FBI in months. "Is something wrong?" "No, actually I'm calling with good news. The federal charges against you have been officially dropped. Mr. Cole's firm submitted a statement confirming that you've fulfilled the terms of your settlement agreement. You're in the clear." Victoria exhaled. She hadn't realized she had been holding her breath. "Thank you for letting me know." "There's something else. Mr. Cole wants to meet with you." Victoria froze. "What?" "He's in Los Angeles for business. He asked if you would be willing to have a conversation. He said it's not mandatory, just a request." Victoria's heart was pounding. She hadn't seen Darius Cole since that day in the interrogation room. She had thought about him often. Every time she scrubbed a toilet, every time she served a meal, every time she felt humiliated and small. She had thought about what she would say to him if she ever saw him again. "When?" she asked. "Tomorrow, 3 o'clock. There's a coffee shop on Main Street called The Daily Grind. He'll be there." Victoria wrote down the address with a trembling hand. "Mrs. Whitmore," Agent Morrison said, "for what it's worth, I've been getting reports from the center about your progress. Marcus Jefferson called my office last week. He said you're the hardest worker he's ever seen. Coming from him, that's saying something." Victoria felt tears prickling at her eyes. "Marcus said that?" "He did. He also said he was wrong about you, that you might actually be capable of change." Agent Morrison paused. "I hope he's right. Good luck tomorrow." The line went dead. Victoria sat motionless, staring at the address she had written down. Tomorrow, 3 o'clock. Darius Cole. She didn't sleep that night. The next afternoon, Victoria walked into the Daily Grind at exactly 3 o'clock. She was wearing her cleanest jeans and a simple white blouse she had found at a thrift store. No jewelry, no makeup. Just her face, her gray-streaked hair, and the person she had become. Darius Cole was already there. He was sitting at a corner table, reading something on his tablet. He looked exactly the same as she remembered. Powerful, composed, immaculate. His suit probably cost more than she would earn in 6 months. He looked up as she approached. "Mrs. Whitmore, Mr. Cole." He gestured to the chair across from him. "Please, sit." Victoria sat. Her hands were trembling. She folded them in her lap to hide it. A waitress appeared, young, Latina, tired eyes. "What can I get you?" "Just water, please," Victoria said. "Thank you." The waitress blinked, looked at her strangely, then smiled. "Sure thing, hun. I'll be right back." She walked away. Darius watched the exchange. "You said thank you." "Yes." "You made eye contact." "Yes." 6 months ago, you wouldn't have acknowledged her existence. Victoria felt her face flush. "I know." Darius studied her for a long moment. His expression was unreadable. "You look different," he finally said. "I feel different. Tell me about it." Victoria took a deep breath. "I don't know where to start." "Start with the first day." So Victoria told him. She told him about the humiliation of learning to mop floors, the exhaustion of standing on her feet for 12 hours, the shame of being recognized by the other workers who had all seen the video, who all knew exactly who she was and what she had done. She told him about Marcus Jefferson, who had treated her like dirt for the first 3 months, who had given her the worst jobs, who had tested her every single day to see if she would quit. She told him about the veterans, Robert, James, Maria, William, all the others, people who had nothing but their dignity and who had taught her more about grace and resilience in 6 months than she had learned in 52 years of privilege. She told him about the night she had finally broken down and apologized to the staff, all of them, one by one, for being arrogant, for being dismissive, for acting like she was better than them when she had never been better than anyone. She told him about the moment Marcus had looked at her, really looked at her, and said, "Maybe you're not completely hopeless after all." She told him everything. When she finished, Darius was quiet for a long time. "Do you know why I asked to see you today?" he finally said. Victoria shook her head. "I wanted to see if you had changed, really changed, or if you were just playing a role until your sentence was up. And? Darius leaned back in his chair. The Victoria Whitmore I met on that airplane would never have said thank you to a waitress. She would never have made eye contact. She would never have spoken about her experiences with that kind of humility. He paused. I think you might actually be different. Victoria felt tears streaming down her face. She didn't try to hide them. I am different, she whispered. I'm not the same person. I don't even recognize who I used to be. When I think about what I did to you, what I said, I feel sick, physically sick. I don't know how I lived with myself for so many years. Darius nodded slowly. That's called a conscience, Mrs. Whitmore. It sounds like you finally grew one. Victoria laughed through her tears. Better late than never, I guess. Better late than never. The waitress returned with Victoria's water. Victoria looked up at her. I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name earlier. The waitress looked surprised. It's Elena. Elena, that's a beautiful name. Thank you for the water. Elena smiled. You're welcome, hun. She walked away. Darius watched the exchange with something that might have been approval. I have something for you, he said. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out an envelope. Victoria took it. What is this? Open it. She opened the envelope. Inside was a check. She looked at the amount and nearly dropped it. $50,000. Mr. Cole, I can't accept this. It's not from me, it's from my firm. Darius leaned forward. We were so impressed by the reports from Veterans Hope Center that we've decided to make a donation. $50,000, earmarked specifically for job training programs. Victoria stared at the check. But why give it to me? Because I want you to deliver it personally, to Marcus Jefferson. I want you to tell him that this donation is because of you, because of the work you did, because you showed us that people can change. Victoria's hands were shaking. Mr. Cole, Darius. Call me Darius. Darius, Victoria looked up at him. I don't deserve this. Maybe not, but the veterans do, and you helped them. That counts for something. Victoria held the check like it was made of glass. $50,000. More money than she had touched in 6 months. Money that would help people who had nothing. Money that she had earned. Not through privilege, not through manipulation, through actual work. There's one more thing, Darius said. Victoria looked up. My firm is opening a new division focused on veterans' legal aid. Pro bono work, helping veterans navigate the VA system, fight wrongful evictions, deal with benefits claims. We need someone to coordinate outreach, someone who understands the community, someone the veterans trust. Victoria's heart stopped. Are you offering me a job? I'm offering you an interview. The job isn't guaranteed. You'll have to earn it. But if you're interested, I think you'd be a good fit. Victoria couldn't breathe. Why? After everything I did to you, why would you help me? Darius was quiet for a moment. He looked out the window, then back at Victoria. Because my mother believed that everyone deserves a second chance. She believed that redemption was possible for anyone willing to do the work. She spent her whole life giving second chances to people who didn't deserve them. He paused. I used to think she was naive. Now I think she was the wisest person I ever knew. Victoria wiped her eyes. She sounds like an incredible woman. She was, and she would have wanted me to do this. Not for you, for her. Victoria looked at the check in her hands, at the man sitting across from her, at the life she had destroyed, and the new life she was slowly building from the wreckage. I don't know what to say, she whispered. Say yes to the interview. That's all I'm asking. Victoria looked up at him. Yes, I'll do the interview. Darius smiled. It was the first real smile she had ever seen on his face. Good. My assistant will contact you with the details. He stood up and gathered his things. And Mrs. Whitmore? Victoria. Call me Victoria. Victoria, he extended his hand. It was good to see you. The real you, not the woman on that airplane. Victoria shook his hand. That woman is gone. I made sure of it. Darius nodded. I believe you. He turned and walked out of the coffee shop. Victoria sat alone at the table, holding the check, watching him go. She thought about the airplane, the wine, the hatred, the destruction. She thought about the interrogation room, the settlement, the choice. She thought about the past 6 months, the toilets, the meals, the veterans, the slow, painful process of becoming human. And she thought about Dorothy Cole, a woman she had never met, a woman who had cleaned houses for people like her, a woman who had believed in second chances. Victoria looked down at the check. $50,000. A new job, a new life. She didn't deserve any of it, but she was going to earn it. She was going to spend the rest of her life earning it. Victoria stood up, left a $5 tip for Elena, half of everything she had in her wallet, and walked out into the afternoon sun. She had work to do. 2 years later, Victoria Whitmore stood at a podium in the grand ballroom of the Hilton Los Angeles, facing an audience of 500 people. She was terrified. Her hands trembled against the wooden lectern. Her heart pounded so loudly she was certain the microphone would pick it up. Sweat dampened her palms despite the air conditioning. But she didn't run. She had spent 2 years learning not to run. "Good evening," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "My name is Victoria Whitmore, and 2 years ago, I was the most hated woman in America." A ripple went through the crowd. Some people shifted uncomfortably. Others leaned forward with interest. Most of you know my story. You've seen the video. You've read the headlines. You know what I did on that airplane. Victoria paused, gathering her courage. What you don't know is what happened after. What you don't know is how a moment of hatred became the beginning of redemption. She looked out at the audience. In the front row sat Marcus Jefferson, wearing his Marine Corps dress uniform for the first time in decades. Beside him was William, the 84-year-old Vietnam veteran who had been the first to show her kindness. And at the end of the row, watching her with those dark, intelligent eyes, sat Darius Cole. Victoria took a deep breath. "I'm here tonight to accept the Veterans Advocacy Award on behalf of Cole, Harrison and Associates Veterans Legal Aid Division. But I don't deserve this award. I didn't create this program. I didn't fund it. All I did was show up every day and try to be better than I was yesterday." She paused. "The person who deserves this award isn't me. It's a man named Darius Cole, a man I assaulted, a man I humiliated, a man who had every right to destroy me, and instead gave me a second chance." The audience turned to look at Darius. He sat motionless, his expression unreadable. 2 years ago, Darius Cole offered me a choice. I could face total destruction, or I could spend 2 years working at a homeless veterans center, learning humility, learning service, learning to see people I had spent my whole life ignoring. Victoria's voice cracked. "I chose to work, and it was the hardest thing I've ever done. But it was also the best thing. Because somewhere between scrubbing toilets and serving meals and listening to stories of sacrifice and suffering, I found something I had lost a long time ago." She looked directly at Darius. "I found my humanity." The audience was silent, rapt. "This award belongs to Darius Cole. It belongs to his mother Dorothy, who taught him that everyone deserves a second chance. It belongs to Marcus Jefferson, who refused to give up on me even when I gave him every reason to. And it belongs to every veteran at Hope Center who showed me what real courage looks like." Victoria stepped back from the podium. "Thank you." The applause started slowly, then it built and built, until the entire ballroom was on its feet, clapping, some people wiping tears from their eyes. Victoria stood frozen, overwhelmed. She had never received a standing ovation in her life. She had never deserved one. Until now. The reception afterward was a blur of handshakes and congratulations. People Victoria had never met told her she was an inspiration. Journalists asked for interviews. Photographers snapped pictures. Victoria smiled and nodded and said thank you, but her mind was elsewhere. She was looking for Darius. She found him on the terrace, alone, staring out at the Los Angeles skyline. "Mr. Cole?" He turned. "I thought we agreed you'd call me Darius." "Old habits." Victoria walked over to stand beside him. "Thank you for coming tonight. I wouldn't have missed it." They stood in silence for a moment, watching the city lights. "Can I ask you something?" Victoria said. "Of course. Do you forgive me for what I did on that airplane?" Darius was quiet for a long time. Victoria felt her heart pounding. "I forgave you a long time ago," he finally said. "Forgiveness isn't about the other person. It's about freeing yourself from anger. I couldn't carry that anger forever. It would have poisoned me." Victoria nodded slowly. "I'm not sure I've forgiven myself yet." "That's okay. Self-forgiveness takes longer. It requires proof." He looked at her. "You're building that proof every day." Victoria felt tears threatening. She blinked them back. "I heard about Gregory," Darius said. Victoria stiffened. "What about him?" "The bankruptcy, the prison sentence, tax evasion, wasn't it? 18 months federal. He got out last week." "Have you spoken to him?" Victoria shook her head. "He tried to contact me through my lawyer. I declined." "Why?" "Because I'm not that person anymore. The person who was married to him, who enabled him, who looked the other way while he cheated and lied and stole. She's gone. I buried her at Veterans Hope Center." Darius nodded. "Good." A waiter appeared with champagne. Victoria took a glass but didn't drink. "Can I tell you something?" she said. "Of course. My mother called me last month. First time in 2 years. Darius's eyebrows rose. "How did that go?" "She apologized. For abandoning me. For not being there." Victoria's voice wavered. "She said she watched my speech at the Veterans Day ceremony online. She said she didn't recognize me. She said I had become someone she was proud of." "What did you say?" "I told her I forgave her, and I meant it." Victoria finally took a sip of champagne. "I also told her that I wasn't the same person who needed her approval anymore, that I had learned to approve of myself." Darius smiled. "That's growth." "That's therapy, 3 sessions a week for 2 years." Victoria laughed softly. "Turns out I had a lot of issues to work through. Don't we all?" They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. "What's next for you?" Darius asked. "The Veterans Division is expanding. We're opening offices in San Francisco and Phoenix. I'll be overseeing the rollout." "That's a lot of responsibility." "I know. I'm terrified." Victoria paused. "But I've learned that fear isn't a reason not to do something. It's just information. It tells you that something matters." Darius looked at her with something like respect. "You really have changed." "I hope so. Every day I wake up and try to be better than the day before. Some days I succeed, some days I fail, but I never stop trying. That's all anyone can do." The door to the terrace opened. Marcus Jefferson walked out, his prosthetic leg clicking against the tile. "There you are," Marcus said gruffly. "People are looking for you. Some senator wants to shake your hand." Victoria smiled. "Tell him I'll be there in a minute." Marcus looked at Darius, then back at Victoria. His weathered face softened slightly. "You did good tonight, kid." Victoria felt her eyes welling up. Marcus had never called her anything but Whitmore or you for the first year she worked at the center. Kid was practically a term of endearment coming from him. "Thank you, Marcus, for everything." Marcus grunted. "Don't thank me. You did the work. I just made sure you didn't slack off." He turned and walked back inside. Victoria watched him go. "He saved my life, you know." "How so?" "The first month I was at the center, I wanted to quit every single day. I thought about walking out, running away, starting over somewhere no one knew me." She shook her head. "But Marcus wouldn't let me. Every time I tried to feel sorry for myself, he'd give me another toilet to scrub. Every time I complained, he'd tell me about men who had survived things I couldn't imagine. He refused to let me be a victim." "He sounds like a good man." "He's the best man I've ever known. And he's a black man who I would have ignored 2 years ago, who I would have looked right through like he didn't exist." Victoria's voice caught. "The irony isn't lost on me." Darius put his hand on her shoulder. "The past is the past, Victoria. What matters is who you are now and who you're becoming." Victoria nodded. "I know, but I never want to forget who I was. I need to remember, so I never become that person again." "That's wisdom." The door opened again. This time it was William, the 84-year-old veteran, shuffling out on his cane. "Miss Victoria," he said, his voice trembling with age, "I wanted to say something to you before I head home." Victoria walked over to him. "Of course, William. What is it?" William took her hands in his. His grip was weak, but warm. "I've been coming to Hope Center for 12 years. I've seen a lot of volunteers come and go. Most of them show up for a few weeks, take their photos for social media, and disappear." He looked into her eyes. "But you stayed. When it was hard. When people cursed at you. When nobody believed you could change. You stayed." Victoria felt tears streaming down her face. "William, let me finish." William squeezed her hands. "I served 3 tours in Vietnam. I saw men die. I killed men. I came home broken and spent 40 years trying to put myself back together. And in all that time, you know what I learned?" "What?" "That the measure of a person isn't who they were at their worst. It's who they become after." William smiled, revealing gaps in his teeth. "You became somebody good, Miss Victoria. Don't let anyone ever tell you different." Victoria couldn't speak. She pulled William into a hug, holding him like he was the most precious person in the world, because in that moment, he was. "Thank you, William," she whispered. "Thank you for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself." "That's what family does," William said, "and you're family now, whether you like it or not." He patted her back and shuffled away. Victoria stood on the terrace, tears streaming down her face, feeling something she hadn't felt in years. Home. She had found a home. Not a house, not an address, a community of people who had accepted her, challenged her, and ultimately transformed her. Darius walked over with a handkerchief. "You're going to ruin your makeup." Victoria laughed through her tears. "I'm not wearing any makeup." "I noticed. It suits you." Victoria dabbed at her eyes. "Can I ask you one more question?" "Of course." "Your mother, Dorothy, do you think she would be proud of what we've built? The Veterans Division, the legal aid, all of it?" Darius was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was thick with emotion. "My mother used to say that the best thing you can do with your pain is use it to help others. She said that suffering either makes you bitter or better, and the choice is yours." He looked at Victoria. "I think she would be very proud of the program, of the people we've helped, and of you." "Of me? You took your worst moment and turned it into something meaningful. You didn't have to. Most people don't. But you did." Darius smiled. "My mother would have loved you for that." Victoria felt something shift inside her chest, a weight she had been carrying for 2 years. The weight of shame, of guilt, of self-hatred suddenly felt lighter. Not gone. She suspected it would never be completely gone, but lighter. "I should get back inside," she said. "Apparently there's a senator who wants to meet me." "Go, change some laws, help some veterans, save the world." Victoria laughed. "I don't know about saving the world, but maybe I can save a few people." That's how it starts, one person at a time. Victoria turned to go, then stopped. "Darius?" "Yes?" "Thank you. For everything. For giving me a chance when I didn't deserve one. For believing I could change when nobody else did. For being the kind of person who builds people up instead of tearing them down." Thaddeus shook his head. "I didn't do anything, Victoria. You did the work. I just opened a door. You're the one who walked through it." Victoria smiled. "Then thank you for opening the door." She walked back into the ballroom, into the lights and the applause, and the new life she had built from the ashes of her old one. Thaddeus watched her go. Then he pulled out his phone and opened his photos. He scrolled until he found the one he was looking for, a faded image of a black woman in a maid's uniform, smiling at the camera with tired but kind eyes. "She did it, Mama," Darius whispered. "She actually did it." He put the phone away and walked back inside. The gala ended at midnight. Victoria said goodbye to Marcus, to William, to all the veterans and volunteers who had become her family. She hugged Darius one last time and promised to call him about the San Francisco expansion. Then she walked out of the hotel into the cool Los Angeles night. A town car was waiting. The driver held the door open. "Where to, ma'am?" Victoria paused. 2 years ago, she would have given the address of her mansion in Bel Air. She would have climbed into the back seat without acknowledging the driver. She would have scrolled through her phone, oblivious to the human being 3 feet away from her. Tonight, she looked at the driver, really looked at him. "What's your name?" she asked. The driver blinked, surprised. "James, ma'am." "James, nice to meet you. I'm Victoria." She extended her hand. James shook it, clearly bewildered. "Nice to meet you too, ma'am." "I'm going to Veterans Hope Center. Do you know it?" "The shelter downtown?" "Yes, ma'am." "That's where I live now." "Well, I have an apartment nearby, but the center is home." Victoria smiled. "And please, call me Victoria." She climbed into the car. James closed the door and got behind the wheel. As he pulled away from the hotel, he glanced in the rearview mirror. "Ma'am, Victoria, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Aren't you the woman from that video, the one on the airplane?" Victoria felt her stomach clench. The question still hurt. It probably always would. "Yes," she said quietly. "That was me." James was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "My cousin showed me another video last week, from some veterans ceremony. There was a woman giving a speech about second chances, about how she learned to be a better person." He paused. "That was you too, wasn't it?" Victoria nodded. "Yes." "I thought so," James smiled in the rearview mirror. "My grandmother always said that people can change if they really want to. I never believed her. But watching you tonight, the way you talked to me, the way you looked at me like I was a real person," he shook his head. Maybe she was right. Victoria felt tears threatening again. She seemed to cry a lot these days. But they weren't tears of shame anymore. They were tears of gratitude. "Your grandmother sounds like a wise woman, James." "She was. Passed away last year. But I think she would have liked you." "I hope so. I'm trying to be someone worth liking." They drove in comfortable silence through the city streets. When they arrived at Veterans Hope Center, Victoria reached for her wallet. "What do I owe you?" "Nothing. It's been paid for." "By who?" James smiled. "Mr. Cole. He paid for all the rides tonight. Said it was his way of saying thank you." Victoria shook her head, laughing softly. Even now, Darius was still teaching her about generosity. "Thank you, James, for the ride and for the conversation." "Thank you, Victoria, for giving me something to believe in." She got out of the car and watched him drive away. Then she turned and looked at Veterans Hope Center. The building was dark except for a few windows. Inside, 200 veterans were sleeping, safe and warm and cared for. Because people like Victoria showed up every day and did the work. She thought about the airplane, the wine, the hatred, the woman she used to be. She thought about the interrogation room, the settlement, the choice. She thought about Marcus Jefferson and his stubborn refusal to give up on her. She thought about William and his weathered hands and his words about family. She thought about Darius Cole and his mother, Dorothy, and the door they had opened. And she thought about herself, the new Victoria, the one who said thank you, the one who looked people in the eye, the one who woke up every morning determined to be better than she was yesterday. She had done terrible things. She had been a terrible person, and she would carry the shame of that airplane forever. But she had also changed, really, truly changed, not because someone forced her to, not because she was afraid of punishment, but because she had finally seen the truth about herself and decided she didn't want to be that person anymore. Redemption wasn't a destination. It was a journey, and Victoria Whitmore was still walking. She pulled out her keys, opened the door, and stepped inside. Tomorrow there would be toilets to scrub, and meals to serve, and veterans to help. Tomorrow there would be challenges and setbacks and moments when she doubted herself. But tonight, for the first time in 54 years, Victoria Whitmore went to sleep knowing exactly who she was and who she wanted to be. And that was enough. That was more than enough. That was everything.